Hello everybody, and welcome to another stream. So for this one I wanted to show a little bit of a workflow that I have going for assets created in Blender and how I bake from high poly to low poly, then texture them in Quixel, and then bring them into Unreal through Bridge. So it's kind of a multi-step process. Hopefully it's going to be pretty quick, and let's uh, let's get going. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be opening my um, this little door, kind of a metal door that I made some time ago. So basically what it is, and I'm in Blender 3.0, so if I stumble a little bit, it's just because I'm kind of getting used to it at the moment. Okay, so what I have is, if you look at this, I have a low poly, and then I have a high poly that also has a high poly handle. This one has quite lower poly. But what we're going to do is we're going to be baking the normal uh, curvature map at ambient occlusion using xNormal because baking things in Blender has already been covered by Quixel, and I actually haven't been able to get it to work. So this is why I'm making this video. Hopefully it's going to help other folks out. Alright, so first things first, what I'm going to do is let's bake these three maps, get them into into Mixer, and then we'll refine it further by using an ID map. So that way we can assign specific areas of the map of the mesh different materials. So like a side of it might have metal, a side of it might have some wood on it. Okay, well, so first what I'm going to do is I'm going to be exporting these mesh. So let's take a look and export this one. And just to have a quick peek, this is how the UV maps look at the moment. And let's just go into solid. So as you can see, it's a very simple mesh. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to be exporting this as an OBJ. One thing that I've noticed is, and actually let's just kind of keep it clean, and this is going to be for a tutorial purpose. One thing that I've noticed, and I'm not sure if this is an issue for other people, is that xNormal works best with OBJ files and not so much with FBX. Whereas on the other hand, Mixer works best with FBX. So that's a little bit of a hiccup. Hopefully that's just on my end, but this is, if you run into issues, this is what I'm doing. Alright, so let's export this, and I think this was the low poly, so I'm going to call it LP. Export object. Oh, and actually I think I just went a little too fast, so let's do that again. And let's do wave from object, make sure I have the selection only because it exported everything. So let's export object again. Then going on to this one, I'm going to be selecting every element of the door, and let's export this one again, and this one's going to be the high poly. So this is going to be HP export object. Yeah, so that way it took a little bit longer. And since I'm here, I'm going to be exporting this FBX just for bringing it into Mixer. All right, so this is going to be our rusted door. Okay, now let's jump into xNormal. So while this one is the copyright is kind of dated, it's still a very well working program, and I'm very happy with it. So let's take a look where I've exported my meshes. So I'm going to need my high definition mesh, and I'm just going to drag that in. Then my low definition mesh, dragging that in, and now just the baking options and where I'm going to be exporting these. So let's do it in tutorial here, and I just want to do the kind of the naming. So it's going to start as rusted door, and then the program is going to add normal, curvature, or ambient occlusion. Alright, so the rusted door, and I'm going to leave it as PNG. So I'm going to keep it at 1024 just for the sake of speed. So normal map, ambient occlusion, and then curvature map. So let's go ahead and generate maps. You might be getting this message, and now depending on your mesh, you might want to go with a cage, and that's pretty simple when it comes to this. You can just use your model and slightly enlarge it, and I'll show you that right after this bake completes. So let's just leave this to go for a little bit. Yeah, so it takes a little bit of time. I mean, with if I was to go with 2K, it would have taken quite a bit longer. You might get a bit of a speed bump with probably with Blender, but that's the only thing I was never able to get it to work. So unfortunately, here we are. And also, I haven't looked that much into xNormal if there's a way to make this go a little quicker. So if you can find one, great. You can post it in the comments. I would love to hear how you do that. All right. So now we have our bakes. Let's jump into Mixer. All right. So Quixel Mixer, and I'm going to be starting a new mix. I'm going to call this Rusted Door Tutorial, and OK. So first things first, let's import our model. So I'm going to go here and select Custom Model. And let's see, I have this right here. And I'm going to go with my FBX file so that I don't run into any issues. And let's see, why does that happen? Since I do have UVs, that's odd. Let me try exporting this again. Export as FBX. So selected objects. Let's see. Since I'm a little new with this version of Blender, trying to make sure that I got everything set. So let's try doing this again. Export FBX. Let's jump into here. There we go. That was a little odd. I didn't really change anything, but anyways. Okay, so now that we have the mesh in here, let's go ahead and add our texture maps. And the cool thing about this is that you can import all maps, and it's going to prompt you to where your maps live. So I'm going to select the folder, and it's importing the normals, the occlusion, and the curvature. And as you can see, the model already looks like it has the normal bakes to it. So let's quickly add something from my local library. And for this one, I'm going to go into Smart Materials, and I'm going to be looking, of course, for some rust because it's always fun to look at. So I like this rusted painted green material. I usually like to use this quite a bit. Alright, so as you can see, it got applied. There's not a lot of what you would think of, you know, the edges kind of being a little bit of rust or wear on it. So for that, let's go into Layers, and I'm going to do a quick edit on this just to get ourselves started with texturing this this asset. So in here, let's go ahead and I'll take a look at our rust base. And in here you see you have edges rust. And for this one, I'm going to be, let's take a zoom in a little bit. So I'm going to be lowering the tightness here a little bit. As you can see, it's already applying some effects and bringing down the levels as well. That should like spread that out a little bit more across where the edges and cavities of this map are at. So as you can see right now, everywhere where I have some edges, that gets applied. Okay, so that's a good good starting point. But I want to be able to apply different materials to this mesh, right? I want to be able to apply and not have to go through the process of painting painting masks. So I want to apply maybe wood for this part here and this part here. So let's go back into Blender, and what we'll do is we'll create an ID map. So this is the one thing that I can do when it comes to baking. So let's take a look at our mesh. So in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to press tab, and if you don't have this open, like I have it in default, if you the workspace. So down here, you want to switch to UV editor, and let's see. I think this is already in. Yeah, like I said, I'm getting used to these icons, and so we already have that. And let's pull this up and create a new window. And I'm going to be switching this to shader editor. So one thing that you're going to need for this is, let's go into our materials, and I'm going to create two materials. So there's going to be a material 1, and again, this only is only for me to get the ID map out there. This mesh itself is only going to have one material that I've already exported out with. So let's call this metal, and I'm going to be switching my thing here to a diffuse BSDF, so just to keep it simple. And let's apply a color of, I'm going to make this red just so that I can tell the difference. And as far as the viewport display, I'm also going to keep this at red. Okay, so as you can see, that gets applied because this material is applied to the entire mesh. And I'm going to be adding another one, and I'm going to be calling this wood. And let's change it to diffuse BSDF, and I'm going to leave it as white. But I'm going to go in and let's see, again, I'm getting used to this. I believe it's 2 or 3 where you can select the faces, and then I'm going to be selecting wood and assigning it to that. So now we have, and actually before I go into this, let's change our render engine to cycles. And let's see, one thing that I do need to do is this one works in edit mode, but I can't see it in here. So there we go, we just have to switch to this little option, viewport shading. So there we go. So now we have white is going to be wood and the rest of it is going to be metal. Okay, so in order for us to bake our ID map, what I'm going to do is in here I'm going to be adding Shift A to add a new texture and an image texture. And what I'm going to do next, in our UV editor, I'm going to be adding a new image. And I'm going to turn off alpha, I don't need that. So I'm going to leave it at 1024 by 1024. Hit OK. So make sure that in our image texture down here, I'm going to select untitled. I don't need to link it to anything. I just need to have it in here. Okay, so now this is all black, and I'm going to go into our little camera, down to bake, and just select diffuse. And from the contributions here, I'm just going to leave it to color. And let's hit bake. You're going to get a little bit of a message here, no active image found, but this should work just fine for us to get our ID map onto here. And let's see, oh, I actually forgot something, and that is, my apologies, in our materials. So we have two materials, and now we have wood selected. Once we select metal, see there's nothing here, so we need to add that as well. So image texture, so that both that information gets written to this one image texture. And then untitled, again, I just left it as untitled. Let's go back and try and do that bake one more time. This might take a little bit longer this time, but it's still pretty quick. You can always change your device from CPU to GPU compute, and that should speed it up quite a bit. But I think we're almost there. Come on, you can do it. Alright, so now we have our ID map. So let's say go ahead and save this, save as, and let's place it in tutorial here, and this is going to be our rusted door ID, and save as image. Alright, so back into into Mixer. So in here, what I'm going to do is go into setup and edit texture sets, and I'm going to be loading my material ID just like that. There we go. So now going into layers, I already have a pretty nice result with our rust. I'm going to be to our rust group, I'm going to be adding an ID mask. And here you can see I have white and bright red. So if I select bright red, that gets applied just to the surfaces that I wanted it. So now for the rest of it, let's add some wood. So let's go, I know I have something in my local library as far as some of the things that I've downloaded from Megascans. Let's take a look. I think it's under surface, and yeah, actually this one should work pretty well. And as you can see, it gets applied to the entire thing. So let's create a new group, and I'm going to call this wood. Move it in here, and I'm going to start by adding an ID map and select our white surface. So now that one gets applied just to that area. And I think let's do some small changes to this. I'm going to be tilting it to be like that. I think that kind of works. And let's see if I increase the scale a little bit. If I make it too small, these kind of patterns start repeating. So I'm a little bit on the fence about that. Let's see if we use tiling. Tiling doesn't really work so well. It's still kind of interesting though. So let's see a 2 and 2. I mean, I guess you can see a door that'd be like kind of vertical like this. Okay, well I'm okay with that. All right, so to continue a little bit with the texturing, I want to kind of dirty this surface up a little bit. So looking into my rusted painted metal green, I have some pretty good starting points. So I can start with this rust base that I like. So I'm going to be duplicating this, and I'm going to bring it right above my my wooden planks. So as you can see, it got applied pretty nicely. One of the things you have to consider is when you look at these edge rust, there's these edges and cavities, and it relies on the underlying mix. So the underlying mix, like in our case, the cracked wood planks, has quite a bunch of divots and like dips, and it's very rough, you know, the surface itself. So that's one of the things to consider when you have this, and you might want to play around with the levels a little bit. Just let's see how this one looks. There we go. We just added some dirt in the crevices, and I think I like that. Alright, so that looks pretty good. But I also want to add a little bit more kind of just some individualized painting to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this layer. And instead of having this here like this, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to clear this mask stack, or actually I'm going to delete it. And I'm going to be adding a paint layer. Oh, actually, sorry. To this, let's add a paint mask. And one thing you want to do is if you go down here, you have the option to add a paint mask. And if you hold Alt, it's going to be a black paint mask. So that way you're just going to paint brand new details. So I'm going to want to paint maybe some kind of like some dripping rust off of the edge of this metal here. So let's take a look. I think I've imported one of these brushes in here. So I'm going to show you how to import brushes, and the way you do that is right down here where you have load image, and you can load an image if you have something that's outside of the realm of what's in your library, right? Because this one is actually out of my local library, and I think, let's see, where do I have that? As maybe on the leak somewhere. I can't remember how I found it. Let's see. Old types. Yeah, I believe it was one of those. Like for example, that's one of the ways to import some of these maps. I believe what happened was, like for example, let's take a look. This would be something interesting to go for. So while I don't want this one in here, let's go back to our local library, and I want to show this in Explorer. And if you look at this, you'll notice that this one has an alpha to it. So what we can do is actually we can import this and use it to paint our mask. So let's try and do that. So in our viewport, let's go ahead and load an image, and where our decal lives, I'm going to be importing this. So right now, let's see, where did it bring it? It's there. So let's make it a little bit bigger. I'm not sure why it didn't. I think what one of the issues is this one is as you can see, it's a 256 by 248. So unfortunately, I'm not sure if you can paint with a brush that is not one by one, so to speak. So that's why this one, and this had the same import process. This one's a square brush. So I'm going to be using this just because it looks a little bit better, more realistic. So let's make this a little bit bigger and make sure your brush color is set to white. And I'm going to be painting some of these kind of like leaking elements here. Let's try and let's make it pretty big. There we go. So that looks pretty nice there. And over there, maybe that's a little too big. I think I might want to move it to the left a little bit just to have it at that corner there. There we go. That's pretty interesting. The one thing that I don't like is that I'm actually painting rust. So instead of having this one as rust, maybe I could do with something else. Let's take a look in our library and see. Maybe I can use some. I'm not sure if I have any kind of dirt items that could fit this. Let's see how this looks. I'm not entirely sure. Actually, not too bad. I could work with that. So let's delete this layer. Okay, I can keep that in. And for this one, again, let's start by adding and holding Alt and adding a black mask here. Alright. There we go. I think that's kind of interesting. We can probably lower the albedo down some more. Okay, that's not too bad. Let's add some more over there. Maybe over here. Okay, that's a pretty good point for that. Just adding something that's we have it masked by the ID map, right? All right, so that's pretty interesting. Now, another cool thing that I want to show you is the ability to paint normal details. So that works in a very similar to how we just painted this mask. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be adding a paint layer. So one of the things that you have to note about the paint layer is that it has to be below whatever you want to paint on. So for example, I want to paint like some rivets on this metal, like some bolts. So this one, it has to be underneath your rust base, because as you can see, this edge rust, which you see around here and around here, is going to be painted in our edges and cavities, and it's going to rely on the underlying mix. So the underlying mix is also going to be represented by whatever we paint for our rivets or our screws. So let's go ahead and in our paint, I don't have any. I actually have one imported at the moment, but I'm going to show you the resource that I got this from, and this one is actually really nice, and I definitely recommend it, and it's a free resource. Again, kind of the purpose of the video is to do all this for free. So here we are. It's Michael Dunham, and this is the pack that I've already downloaded, but I'll post this in a video description so you can have a look at it. So let's take a quick look at where that is. Hopefully I still have it open somewhere in my downloads. I'm going to be looking for some screws. So the download comes like this, and it has all these PSD files, but you can open that with, guess what, GIMP. So this one's kind of a little bit sci-fi-ish, so let's look for something a little bit simpler. Maybe we can use this square screw, and let's see, I hope it's this one. Alright, so yeah, that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead, and I'm going to be exporting this as, calling it .png, and export. Alright, so now back into Quixel, into Mixer. Let's do the import. So right in here, I'm going to be loading my image, and I believe I have this somewhere in downloads. There we go. So I have my screwhead alpha, and I'm going to click open. So now you have it right here, and I can go ahead and I can save this brush and just save it like that. Okay, hopefully it doesn't crash. It just took forever to save it. Alright, well, so now that we have that in, let's go ahead and paint it. Let's see, hopefully, let's see how this works. There we go. So as you can see, the underlying mix is where it's at. If I was to move this here, you can see there's nothing happening. But once it's on the underlying mix, hey, that looks pretty nice. Let's go ahead and I'm going to try and paint something that looks a little bit more realistic, I hope. So let's maybe do kind of maybe the corners of this. So one here, one here. And actually I wanted to, let's make sure that I'm doing some angle jitter here, just so that I get some variety in the rotation of this. And they're probably not perfectly placed, but not gonna spend too much time on it. There we go. So that looks pretty nice. Looks like these were some panels that were bolted onto the surface, and so that works out. Alright, one more thing that I wanted to add, and by all means you can go crazy with these details as long as you can find these little alpha brushes, terrific. And one thing that I wanted to add to this is and I played around with this earlier, is some graffiti, right? Everybody likes graffiti. I mean, at least I do when it comes to to these grungy surfaces. So I'm gonna go ahead and let's minimize some of these groups, and I'm gonna go in my local library. I've already downloaded a few, and this was something that I really liked because it's pretty big and interesting. So there it is. It's right there in place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale it down. It's a little big. Maybe to about there. And try and place it. Give it some better placement. Kind of on the front of this. That's perfect. All right, but I want to add some grunge to it. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm gonna use one of the underlying layers of this. So as earlier, I'm going to look into my Rust base, and what I'm going to get from here is I'm just going to use its current existing mask. So for this, I'm going to right click and add a mask stack. And in my Rust base, I'm just going to go ahead and copy mask stack and paste it onto this. So there you go. It's already pretty grungy, but I would like it so that it looks a little bit different, right? So in my mask stack here, I'm going to be adding a mask component. And let's see, if we choose normal, and was it normal? Not this one. My apologies. Let's see, you were able to invert it like this so that the the surface of it kind of, as you can see, it's right. Actually doesn't I'm not that happy with it, so I don't want to invert the edges in Rust, but I want to add a invert from here. So now it looks a little bit better. Like you see, it doesn't show up where these chips of paint fell off. And yeah, if we were to move it around a little bit, I think I kind of like this modifier here because it copies everything from our Rust base. Yeah, I think I kind of like that. But again, this is something that you can play around with, so there's plenty of options what you can do. Okay, so I have some grungy texture going on here. Everything looks pretty decent. I'm pretty happy with the result. You can go crazy with these. All right, and again, this is baked at 1K, so of course, if you go a little higher, you might get quite a lot better looking results. Okay, so now let's get into Unreal. And what I'm going to do is my export here, I'm going to be calling this Rusted Door Tutorial, and I'm going to be exporting it to the library. And let's select the category as maybe other. Export the library. Alright, so it's exporting the maps. And done. Let's fire up Bridge. And at the same time, I'm going to fire up Unreal, so we can do the full trip. Alright, so now if I go to local and I look at Mixer, let's see, sometimes it doesn't refresh. This isn't something that I did earlier. I'm not entirely sure why it doesn't really. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to update. Let me try closing it and maybe starting it up again. Alright, come on, you can do it. I was doing a wee bit too many things for my computer. Alright, so there we go. We have the Rusted Door tutorial that we've just done, and we can see it right in here. Yeah, you know, firing up Unreal at the same time, that took a little bit of power. So there it is. This is our door, and I'm quite happy with how it turned out. All right, well, let's export it to Unreal. So we have everything in place. I'm gonna switch this to 2K so that it goes a little quicker. All right, it got imported, and let's bring it into the engine and take a quick look at it. Right now it's probably not usable because my pivot point is not around where the hinge of the door would be, but this was just a kind of a workflow to showcase how I do this Blender to Quixel to Mixer and to Unreal. Okay, so let's open that up. Where is it? Mega Scans. There it is, Mega Scans. And let's look for Rusted. There it is. Rusted Door Tutorial. Oh, come on, just move a little slower. And there it is. So I think it turned out pretty good. Um, not too bad for everything done for free. So that's going to be it for this tutorial. Hopefully it was useful to some of you. And yeah, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. All right, thank you so much for watching, and take care, everybody.